Blasphemy. This section is about the excuses. That is, when one would not be deemed as a kafir. And it says, therefore, it is understood that one does not blaspheme if. Then we have a number of things here. But when you say therefore, this means that there was something before. And that this is a conclusion. So, to understand this conclusion well, let us revisit our premises. I believe the premises start here. The condition for falling into blasphemy is to willingly say the blasphemy What does that mean? Doesn't mean willingly commit blasphemy. To willingly say what? Saying it is blasphemy. To willingly say the blasphemy, knowing its meaning, not knowing its judgment, that saying it is blasphemy, but knowing its meaning, which is the blasphemous meaning that he willingly says, without a slip of the tongue, or being forced. So without a slip of the tongue means he said what he wanted to say, conscious of what he is saying, realizing the words coming out of his mouth. He realizes the words that are coming out of his mouth. And without being forced, according to the rules of coercion in the chapter of blasphemy. Coercion in the chapter of blasphemy is much more restricted than coercion in other cases. We'll see, inshallah. Or to willingly do what only a blasphemer does. So that's a signal to blasphemous action, to willingly do what only a blasphemer does. And also remember, a blasphemous action can be explicit blasphemy. You are familiar with the term explicit blasphemy. Usually we use it for statements. It is also true of actions. Some action could be an explicit blasphemy. Some other action might not be an explicit blasphemy. You'd say, what if somebody did like this? Talking about his action. Then my answer might be to you, this is not a clear blasphemy, the action in itself. Then you would look at the intention behind the action. Being delighted in the heart is not a condition for falling into blasphemy by consensus. Yes. And I mentioned for you, that's compliant. This is nothing strange. That's compliant with all other rules. The acceptance in the heart is only conditional in the case of compulsion, which means being forced. So we have three words here, forced or being forced, compulsion, and also coercion. As shall come. Okay. Therefore, if that's the condition of blasphemy, then it is understood. What's understood? What we're going to say here outwardly. All these words we're going to now say outwardly. All this, all this, all this, all this. All this is therefore understood. I mean, not every level of detail of it, but we're going to see. It is understood that one does not blaspheme if he did not know the meaning of an explicit blasphemy. Like saying nothing exists but Allah. He didn't know what that means. Or Allah is everywhere. thinking it means something like Allah has power over everything. He is taught and forbidden from such expressions. Where's this one from? If he said nothing exists but Allah, and he didn't understand the explicitness of this statement, then we're not going to deem him as a kafir. It's not that it's not explicit, but he does not know its true meaning actually. Where is this one from? I'll give you three count. Three. From the Sheikh's books, I mean. Two. One. That's from Qawaid Muhimma. When he spoke about the one who said, La mawjuda illallah. Or he says, Allah is everywhere. And he thinks that these two statements, or some statements like them, mean something to the effect of Allah has power over everything. Some people cannot quite put their finger on the proper meaning of something. Even some person was just asking me recently. He said, do you say that saying holy cow and holy something else, I don't know what, is blasphemy? So I said to him, you mean like if someone were to say, Holy Mother of God? He said, well, wait, before that. I said to him, what does it mean? I asked him, what does it mean first? He said, you say this is blasphemy? I said to him, what does it mean? He said, well, it's just some expression of like a way of saying wow. It's just a way of saying wow. So I said, you mean like if someone were to say, Holy Mother of God? So put it like that to make him think about the case. So he said, well, that's clear blasphemy. Okay. So what does holy mean? He said, it means religiously acceptable. I said, it means more than religiously acceptable. It means religiously honorable, religiously revered. Holy cow, that's Hindu paganism. That's blasphemy. That's like someone who said, Holy Mother of God, for astonishment or for saying wow. And holy originally is not for saying wow. Holy means something. But people started using this word holy with something else in a way to express astonishment or, yeah, surprise. So the one who doesn't really understand, he doesn't. If he said, holy cow, and not by one moment did he really comprehend the meaning of the word holy coming out of his mouth. So he's like someone who doesn't know what it means. So you got to be careful here. There's two sides here. On one side, we're not going to say that that's not clear blasphemy. And on the other side, we're not going to ignore the fact that people probably don't really understand what it means when they say it. Although I know, at least in the past, that some sheikhs are skeptical about that. That someone would say holy cow or holy this or holy that without understanding the meaning of what he's saying. So then because of that, they say this is blasphemy. I think this is due to, yeah, I think there's language barrier here. And I think there's a difference in culture here. So that maybe they didn't see it the way the people who say it see it. They saw it more in a literal sense. Don't say that though. If you want to say Subhanallah, that sentence is linguistically a statement of ta'ajjub. It's in the books of grammar, Arabic grammar, that the statement Subhanallah, it is a statement of surprise or astonishment. That's much better than saying holy something. Yani holy something that's not holy. Okay, so it is therefore understood that one does not blaspheme if he did not know the meaning of an explicit blasphemy, or he did not intend the blasphemous meaning of what appears to be blasphemy. What does appear mean? Appears means not explicit. Rather, it seems that what he's saying is blasphemy, but it is possible to take it another way, validly in the language. Not by misunderstanding, like in the first case, like saying Allah is high, or like saying in God's hands. So that's not explicit blasphemy. One does not blaspheme if he did not intend the blasphemous meaning of what appears to be blasphemy. Allah is high, it appears means in a location, maybe not even to someone. I would argue that some people would say most high, and they have no meaning of direction in their minds whatsoever in English language. And even if they believe that God is in a direction, I would argue that someone would even believe that God is in a direction, and he would say about God most high, and he does not mean the direction. Only the Wahhabi believes Allah is in a direction. He says most high, and he means the direction. Because he has a tunnel vision on confirming the direction for Allah because of his argument with the Ash'aris and the Maturidis. So he means it, and he's going to make a point of it. Whereas a Christian, for example, or some other person, he does believe God is in the sky, but he says most high without a focus on his belief that God is in the sky. Allah knows best. And in God's hands is another one, another such phrase. It's not explicit. So if he did not intend the blasphemous meaning of what appears to be blasphemy, then he does not blaspheme. And it's not permissible for you to deem him as a kafir here, number two in particular. Number one, you might deem a person as a kafir here because the only thing that you experienced was an explicit blasphemy from him. And this gave you warrant to deem him as a kafir. He said an explicit blasphemy, and then you said this is blasphemy, for example. But under inspection, you might find that he was ignorant of what it really means. Number two here, you are not allowed to deem a person as a kafir without knowing the Muslim as a kafir. You're not allowed to deem the Muslim as a kafir without knowing what he meant by the statement. And when we say without knowing what he meant by the statement, that does not mean you have to ask him what he meant. We're not saying you're obligated to know what he meant. We're saying you're not allowed to deem him as a kafir without knowing what he meant. So if you want to deem him as a kafir, you might try to figure out what he meant. If you don't want to deem him as a kafir, which is a good idea most of the time probably, then you're going to just say, I don't know what he meant. Or if you're afraid for him because he's your relative or something like that, then you would advise him. Say, this is an apparent statement of blasphemy. Be mindful, etc. And also, it is understood that one does not blaspheme if one's tongue slipped. That's number three. We have some detail under number three. Nice detail here. Praise and thanks are due to Allah, like what comes out as the habitual lahu swear comes out. What's the habitual lahu swear, the voided swear, the frivolous swear? When one habitually says, Wallahi, Wallahi, I swear to God, does he legally bind himself to do something or not do something, or else now he's going to have to fulfill an expiation, a kafara? Not when this comes out habitually without the intent of binding himself. Uh, what does this mean here? This means the judgment is not attached to it. The judgment that would come with the original statement is not attached here. What's the judgment that comes with the original swear? When you say, Wallahi, I swear to God, I shall do such and such. Wallahi, I swear to God, never shall I again do such and such. When you did that deliberately, intentionally, then you have bound yourself to do or not do something. Serious or mundane. Serious or mundane. And if you break this swear, which is not haram in itself, you'll be obligated to fulfill a kafara, to feed some poor people, or to clothe some poor people, or to fast, or to free a slave. There's rules for swearing. Sometimes, though, the word of the swear comes off of the tongue habitually. And therefore, the person is heedless of its true, original, legal purpose. And instead, they're using it for what? Emphasis, for exaggeration. So they say, I swear to God, I was like such and such. Wallahi, I was like. So they're not even saying it to swear to something. So when it comes out like that, the rule of this, what your, yani, the rule of kafara and everything is not attached to it. Now, sometimes some things come off of one's tongue like this. Where are the, yani, this is the answer for such cases like the one who is heedlessly saying lyrics. And these lyrics have something haram in them. And this is the answer for the one who habitually uses profanity. And he inserts his profanity into a statement where it should not be religiously. So, what other meaning can be understood if one says in God's hand? It means in God's power, in God's control. So that's one thing. That's A right there under 3. And B, in Sarihul Bayan, the Sheikh logged some scholars counting what was mindlessly said, what was mindlessly, heedlessly said. Maybe heedless is still not strong enough here. Mindlessly said in panic. What was mindlessly said in panic? Yes, to be like this. The Sheikh logged some scholars counting what was mindlessly said in panic to be like this, like the slip of the tongue, like the habitual swear that comes out. Citing the hadith of the Muslim grave robber who was cremated. What's the hadith of the Muslim grave robber who was cremated? That would be a very fine footnote right here, but we don't have it right here. So if Allah willed, I'll get it. Put it there. And the whole quote from Sarih al-Bayan, but yani, you can look there. This is a reference book here. Outstanding Reference is a reference book. So you can at least know which book and then go and look in there. What was mindlessly said in panic, like the hadith of the Muslim grave robber who was cremated. That was the hadith about the Muslim grave robber, means he's a major sinner. Grave robbing is a major sin. When he was on his deathbed, he was uh, horrified at the prospect of the torture for what he had been doing. Now it's time to die. And you know what does a fool do? This is what a fool does. Fool, he can see what's coming, and then he says, I'll deal with it when it comes. Meaning, he's going to be reckless. So now he's on his deathbed. Now he's shook for all of what he did. So he said to his sons, when I die, then cremate me and pulverize me and scatter my ashes into the winds. For indeed, if so, one might think he's saying, if Allah has power over me, he will torture me a torture that he never tortured anyone. And then they did that. And then Allah commanded the earth to gather his ashes. And he was reassembled. And then he was questioned, why did you do that? What drove you to do what you did? He said, oh my Lord, the fear of you. And then he was forgiven. So some people took a wrong inference from this hadith, and they thought that this proves that if a person doubts about the power of God and therefore any of his necessary attributes because he's ignorant, that he doesn't commit kufr. And no one would explain this hadith this way but a weakling in the knowledge of aqidah, even if he's strong in language or hadith or something else. The people who know the aqidah firmly, they know that if you doubt about any of the 13 attributes of Allah, you are a kafir immediately. You have no excuse, even if you are a new Muslim. So, holding fast to this rule, that if a person doubts about any of the attributes of Allah, the necessary attributes of Allah, like any of the 13, that he would be a kafir. And here comes a hadith, looks like the man said, if Allah has power over me, he will torture me a torture he never tortured anyone with before. And then when his body was reassembled, Allah forgave him. And if Allah forgave him means he was a believer. So how could he be a believer if he doubted about the power of Allah? So this hadith has more than one way of explaining. One way is that it means if Allah makes it tight on me. And one way is what some of the scholars said, that this man was out of his mind while he was talking. He was panicking. They said, and so the way he was talking was like the man who lost his camel in the desert. You know that other hadith. They said the way this man was talking was like the talk of the man who lost his camel in the desert. What did that man say who lost his camel in the desert? And then he sat under the tree and waited to die. And then he looked up and his animal was right there, right over his head. And so he was so happy, he said, oh Allah, you are my slave and I am your Lord. What was that? That's number 3, exactly. Slip of the tongue. Some scholars said when this man, he said, if Allah has power over me, he will torture me. They said he's like this one. He's panicking, yeah, but that one was happy. He was so excited, and this one's panicking. So, so that's what the Sheikh mentioned there in Sarihul Bayan. Any question? So you might need that one day. Then you won't have to ask. You say, Alhamdulillah, I'm not going to deem this person as a kafir. And also, it is understood from that premise that one does not blaspheme if one were mukrah, forced, coerced, compelled. I'll have some footnotes here. According to the proper details, under the threat of death, or the like. Some scholars do not say, or the like. This is the meaning of what Allah the Exalted said, من كفر بالله من بعد إيمانه إلا من أكره وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان ولكن من شرح بالكفر صدرا فعليهم غضب من الله ولهم عذاب عظيم. Whoever disbelieved in Allah after having belief deserves the torture of Allah, except someone, excluding someone compelled while his heart is tranquil with belief. Okay. Let's catch some footnotes here. So one's tongue slipped. It is understood that one does not blaspheme if one's tongue slipped. Here. That is for one to say any of these blasphemous sayings without intending to say it at all, but rather it slipped from his tongue involuntarily. That's a statement from As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. That's Sheikh's definition of slip of the tongue. Or if one were mukrah, forced, coerced, compelled. Footnote. He is called mukrah, compelled. The compelled person is the one who does not blaspheme for merely saying blasphemy after compulsion. Here, this word merely is important. There's not anything else with that but the statement that he was forced to say. The compelled person is the one who does not blaspheme for merely saying blasphemy after compulsion, unless his heart is pleased with what he says. Then he would blaspheme. So the coerced person, according to proper details, footnote here. This excludes devastating blows that do not kill. This footnote here, I think, is not in the proper spot. I'm just going to read it here. It's here because of the word details. But there should be something before it. Anyway, it says, what's these details here? This excludes devastating blows that do not kill. Yeah, the meaning. If you read the sentence here, if one were mukrah, this word were here is because the sentence is connected back here. The word if, because this word if. If one were mukrah, forced, coerced, compelled, according to proper details, under the threat of death, or the like. Yani, here. If one were mukrah, forced, coerced, or compelled under the threat of death, or the like, according to proper details. Yes, that's much better. Under the threat of death, he whose heart is certain with belief, but utters blasphemy while under the threat of death or the like, does not blaspheme. If the Muslim who was compelled to say blasphemy says the word of blasphemy to save himself from what the blasphemers have threatened him, and his heart is not pleased with what he says, he is not charged with blasphemy. Yani, he does not commit blasphemy. He does not, it's true, he's not charged with blasphemy. He doesn't commit blasphemy. When we say charged, then this implies someone else is here saying to him, you're a kafir. I'm charging you with kufr. I'm accusing you of kufr. Yani, even before it gets to the other person who's going to accuse him or not accuse him, he didn't commit blasphemy because he's compelled. That's why also in the Sheikh's books, when he's talking about cases of blasphemy, pay attention. When he says La yakfur, he doesn't blaspheme. And sometimes he says La yukaffar, he's not deemed a kafir. Those don't mean the same thing. La yakfur, he does not blaspheme. La yukaffar does not mean La yakfur. La yukaffar, he's not deemed as a kafir, does not mean La yakfur, not necessarily, which means he does not blaspheme. This is true here. He's not charged with blasphemy. I'm not sure if I translated that like that or if it's what I understood when I was translating. So I just want to say then here, he does not blaspheme. And therefore, no one should charge him with blasphemy. In case he changed his mind after compulsion and his heart was pleased with the statement of blasphemy, he blasphemes. So this footnote is about disliking the blasphemy. This footnote is about disliking the blasphemy. I might shift this footnote to somewhere else here. So, if one were mukrah, forced, coerced, compelled, under the threat of death, or the like. Footnote. The meaning of or the like is what leads to death, such as dismembering his arms and legs. In the Arabic, it says dismembering rijlayhi wa yadayhi. Rijlayhi wa yadayhi. That could possibly be translated as hands and feet. I translated it here as arms and legs. Just in case, it's more likely he's going to die if he gets his arms and legs cut off than if he gets his hands and feet cut off. Without sealing it, of course. So that's a safe translation for me. Arms and legs. Maybe it's enough to say here hands and feet. Hence, there is no harm in believing that the only excuse is the threat of death. This is what Sheikh Muhammad Sulaiman taught us when teaching the explanation of As-Sirat, this detail that I just read to you. However, the Sheikh does repeat the expression and its likes throughout his books in this case. Under the threat of death and the like, or the like. Some scholars don't say or the like. According to proper details. Here's that detail. This excludes devastating blows that do not kill, because we're talking about death threat. So they are pulverizing you. You cannot say the blasphemy, or extended imprisonment, or having an eye gouged out, or having one's money burned or confiscated, or for one's family member to be killed, or having one's chastity violated. None of those are excuses for the blasphemy. From this, it is evident that the case of compulsion to commit blasphemy is tighter than other cases of unjust compulsion. The one who is compelled to divorce his wife or to testify to the judge or the like is not restricted from what is mentioned here. He may utter the divorce or testify under the threat of being beaten or imprisoned for an extended time, for example, or he may say a confession under the threat of uh, under the same type of threat, or he may make a sale under the same type of threat. And in all those cases, it won't be valid. The sale won't be valid. His divorce is not valid as long as he uttered it with the expression that was forced upon him. Like if he were forced to divorce his wife once and he said, I divorced her 3 times, then she's divorced 3 times. Since he wasn't forced to say that. Same thing with the blasphemy. If they said, renounce Allah, and he said, I renounce Allah and his messenger, he blasphemes. Some scholars do not say or the like, which we covered in the footnote. This is the meaning. This verse is not generally including all cases of blasphemy. This is the meaning of what Allah the Exalted, yani, we can say something here. We can say something else here instead of the word meaning. This is the restriction in what Allah the Exalted said. Yani, this particular case, this is what is excluded in particular. In what Allah the Exalted said, من كفر بالله من بعد إيمانه إلا من أكره وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان. Whoever blasphemed, whoever disbelieved in Allah after his faith, what? What about him? Men who, there's a condition here. It's like the word if is there. إلا من أكره وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان, except the one who was compelled while his heart was tranquil with faith. This wow here is wawul hal. It means while. Or you can say this wow is haliyah. While his heart is tranquil with faith. ولكن من شرح بالكفر صدرا. However, anyone who was receptive to the blasphemy inwardly, in his chest, فعليهم غضب من الله, then they deserve the punishment of Allah. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ, and theirs is a great torture, an enormous torture. Whoever disbelieved in Allah after having belief deserves the torture of Allah. Man kafara billahi min ba'di imanihi, it says here, deserves the torture of Allah. Here's a footnote. The Hafiz says that this is a serious threat for the one who willfully apostatizes. Who's the Hafiz? That's Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. So this footnote could use more reinforcement. We can maybe put the reference here. Maybe that's in Fathul Bari. He deserves the torture of Allah. Where did that come from? From right here. فَعَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. That's what I was looking for a long time now. And I finally remember. This ayah has in it taqdeem and ta'khir. I remember it has taqdeem and ta'khir. Couldn't remember where it is or how. The translation helped me right now. من كفر بالله من بعد إيمانه فعليهم غضب من الله إلا من أكره وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان. That's the meaning is there. Taqdeem and ta'khir means if you were to suppose that some of the later statements in the sentence or in the ayah were advanced and some of the early statements in the ayah were delayed, so you just shift some of the words around, then the ayah becomes, the meaning of the ayah, it becomes clear. Yani the ayah will be interpreted. So you do some shifting of the words and the ayah becomes interpreted. That's taqdeem wa ta'khir. Man kafara billahi min ba'di imanih. Whoever disbelieved in Allah after having belief, فَعَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ, deserves the torture of Allah. إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌّ بِالْإِيمَانِ, except someone compelled while his heart was tranquil with faith. And then there's something here that's not clear in the English. وَلَكِنْ مَنْ شَرَحَ بِالْكُفْرِ صَدْرًا. Yeah, as if goes like this then. Whoever disbelieved in Allah after having believed deserves the torture of Allah, except someone compelled while his heart is tranquil with belief, not he who is receptive to the blasphemy inwardly. If you have any question or something or suggestion, feel free. Except someone compelled while his heart is tranquil. On the other hand, if the person were threatened with being killed or its likes, and when he uttered, his heart was delighted, he is, so it says he's judged as a blasphemer. Let's just say he blasphemes. So again, here I'm not sure if that was my comprehension and I translated it like that, or I translated it accurately here. On the other hand, if the person were threatened with being killed or its likes, and when he uttered, his heart was delighted, he blasphemes though he was under threat. Even if we don't know he blasphemed, he really did. And if we didn't know he blasphemed, we would not charge him with blasphemy. We would say he was under threat. Also, if he changed his mind after the compulsion and his heart became delighted afterwards, after the fact, he still blasphemes. And this ayah is in Surah An-Nahl 106. Any question?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Under threat, you were talking about the issue of a person getting their arm cut off, or their leg cut off, or their foot cut off.
What the way the sheikh said it was his arms and legs. So he
Both of them.
didn't separate it. The statement itself, just the statement, is his arms and legs, or
Okay.
perhaps the way it is to be translated is his hands and feet. Yadayhi wa rijlayhi. That's how he said it.
So, as far as like getting a toe cut off or a finger cut off, does that fall under
This
that
one I
category?
don't think is lethal. If it were
Okay.
me, inshallah, Allah grant me the strength and protect me from such things, I wouldn't do it if they cut off only my finger. I don't think it's lethal. I don't think it's lethal.
And what about the issue of pulling teeth?
No, I don't. I'm pretty sure that's not lethal.
Okay.
Under the threat of death or the like, and some scholars don't say or the like. So we have more details to cover concerning the coerced person. Number 4 here. It's going on for some time and has footnotes too. So we get to number 5. So we probably should go ahead and stop here and continue next time. Which ayat of Surah An-Nahl? Yes, that's Surah An-Nahl, ayah 106. Question: what do you make of someone who believes that a sincere dua has the power to change qadar? This is blasphemy. It's blasphemy. Qadar does not change. But don't forget, what's the source of this mistake? What can help a person here is to clarify for him, understand the source of his mistake so he can clarify for him. And it requires actually, you need to build the case for such a person. Say to the person, it is not true that a sincere dua has the power to change qadar. You might say, No, I saw it in the hadith that dua changes qadr. Some hadith or two or three, something that he saw. So you say to him, well, you need to understand something. Firstly, destiny, it means fundamentally what's going to happen and is not going to change. That is actually the meaning of destiny. That's the qadr. Qadr is what is inevitable. Inevitable. So if it were to change means it's not inevitable. If it's not inevitable means it's not destiny. So just by definition, it's not going to change. Yes, you saw some hadiths, and what you understood from them is that the qadar changes by dua. And but there's a detail that didn't appear for you from these reports that you saw, which is that there's something called qadar mu'allaq. Someone might call that pending destiny or conditional destiny. Now maybe the person say, yeah, that's it. So, but Allah knows if He knows what that means, so He's gonna explain to him. So let me tell you what this means. Pending or conditional destiny means that Allah knows that at any point, if a person does one thing, then something will stem from that, and if he does something else at that same point, something else will extend from that. Or Allah knows that if something were to happen, then something else comes from that. But if that were not to happen, or if something else were to happen, then there would be another result that stems from that. Allah knows any of these possibilities, any of such possibilities that are in the future. And He knows which one's not going to happen and which one is definitely going to happen. He knows that if you go, you stand on the corner. So if you turn and stay on the sidewalk, then this is what will happen. But if you cross the street and you keep going straight, then this is what will happen. He knows that all the outcomes, and He knows what's not going to happen. So if you make dua, then it could be that because you made dua, Allah will guide you to what's better. And He will protect you from a harm that He knew that if you didn't make that dua, then this is what will happen. If you make the dua, then this is what will happen. If you don't make the dua, then this is what will happen. This is the meaning of whatever you read. But it doesn't mean that destiny changes. Destiny does not change. Yani, and when we say, if you make dua, then this is what will happen, and if you don't make dua, then this is what will happen, then only one of them is going to happen for sure. Only one of them is inevitable and unavoidable. And you might say, what's the point of this? If that's true, what's the point? What's the point of us being aware of what's never going to happen? Why would we be informed that something's never going to happen? The answer is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was sent to guide the believers. This knowledge the believers have. The believers know that if they make dua, the Prophet taught us, if we make dua, then maybe what we ask, what we make dua will happen. And what we ask for will happen. If we don't make dua, then it won't happen because we didn't make dua. That's why. So you're going to make dua, and then maybe you're going to get what you asked for. And had you not made dua, then you're not even going to get it. And also, from other hadiths, we know that if you stay in touch with your relatives, then it would be a reason for you to live longer and would be a reason for you to have your sustenance expanded. If you don't stay in touch with your relatives, will be a reason for you to live shorter and to have less sustenance, like this. So, because of the knowledge from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have an advantage. That's how the believers are in tune with the unseen through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and making dua and doing the sunnah. Someone's going to do like that until, if Allah wills, he can walk on the water, talk to the animals. It's possible. So that's the meaning of such hadiths like that, not that the qadar changes. So if you are believing that destiny changes, this means really you denied destiny. So say your shahada. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I said, if someone say you order something, some food or something, and order some food, you didn't like the food, but some other food that you wanted before that, and the person said, this mom said, "Dang, I wish I would never ordered that. I should have ordered that in the past instead of this. Maybe I had a better chance to have better food." What is that?
That's, yeah, I think that's normal. It's not blasphemy.
Yeah,
What is that? That's just a regret.
that's so.
And that's, mashallah, thank you for the question, because that's amongst the things the Muslim wants to avoid. Regret. Allah enable us. And anytime you see regret down the path, go the other way. Because you don't want to find yourself saying, man, I sure regret it. Barakallahu feekum. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Question here. There's a teacher who's teaching this based on a hadith. Yeah, pass it along, please. He has a mistake in his aqidah. You said, I heard a saying that birth, death, and marriage are not from conditional destiny. Is it true? I never heard of anything like this. Allah knows. Allah knows all the possibilities. Actually, it's not true. No, it's not true. There's a proof against that. What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say about his son Ibrahim? Anyone know? What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say about his son Ibrahim, who passed away? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Had he not died, he would have been a prophet. That's qadar mu'allaq, pending destiny, conditional destiny. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, had Hajar not made the Zamzam water into a pool, it would have flowed over the ground like a stream. So that's qadar mu'allaq.
Can you spell it for us, please?
Yeah, mu'allaq, I'll write it here. Qadar mu'allaq. You got it?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's why we want to make the best choices. Because you say to yourself, right, at any choice, say, if I do like this, maybe such and such will happen. If I do like that, then maybe such and such will happen. Then you make the best choice for yourself. This knowledge of qadar mu'allaq also makes it, if you understand it, makes it clear for you that really there is true reality that is happening here. We're not just running in a way that we're forced to do things. It's from the amazingness of Allah's creation that He created. Everything is under His control, and He still gave it its own created control. He gave us our own limited created control so that you can do something or not do something. But you just get one chance at any moment. And every single moment, you only have one chance. Every decision is one chance. Think about every decision as your only chance. I mean, وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ